I use this plugin way too much. Like, I use this way too much. Okay, so in this video, I'm gonna be talking about a plugin that I honestly most recently have just been using all over the place. I absolutely love this tool. I love this plugin. First of all, huge shout out to Forrest Whitehead. He's a good buddy of mine. He was the one who introduced me to this plugin. He's got a YouTube channel. I'll link it up here. You should give him a follow. But when I was in Nashville back earlier this year, he had introduced me to this tool, and now I just find myself reaching for it all the time. It is one of those tools that you can use in a very simple way. That's typically how I use it. Or you can get like ridiculously detailed with it and turn it into like a really wild, bizarre kind of sound manipulating tool. All right, so how about I just show you what it does, what it is, and then we'll kind of get into this a little bit more. What I really want you to listen to is this palm muted guitar part. I'm gonna play it for you, and then I'll show you what this sounds like with and without it and kind of what it's actually doing. So let's do this thing. And I'm using a track that I am releasing on September 24th, but if you're watching this, it's already released. I'll have a link down below if you wanna listen to this track. But here's verse 2 with no vocals. Okay, so we're listening to this palm muted guitar right here. Let me play it. Okay, so the plugin is this LFO tool. This is what it looks like when you actually pull it up. And it is, like I said, it can be a pretty simple tool, or you can go just absolute bonkers with it and turn it into this really complex kind of crazy thing that you can do whatever you want with. What I'm using this primarily for right now is using it as a pulsing type engine. So rather than having to use sidechain where I'm putting my kick to a compressor that's doing the sidechain compression with this and pushing it down, instead all I have to do is drop in the LFO tool and it just does it for me. So I want to show you what this sounds like without the tool on, and then I'm going to show you what it sounds like with the tool on. So here's soloed out the guitars, and this is no LFO tool. This is just as we tracked it. Okay, so obviously very basic pattern. Here's what it sounds like when we throw that LFO tool on. So obviously it is giving us this pulsing kind of rhythm to it, if you will. I use this again on the same track on the bass, and I actually use it in a way that is a little bit more interesting because I actually automate it as we're going. So the first chorus here, I'll just play it for you a little bit. You can see this is the bass part that I'm talking about, and you can see that this plugin is bypassed right here in the automation. Let's kind of make this a little bigger for you. You can see it's turned off here. And then once we get to this moment here, it turns on. You can see it's blue. And so what happens is that you get this very simple kind of just basic bass. And then once we get into this fifth bar of the chorus, all of a sudden you start getting the pulsing groove. So this is what it sounds like here. So you can hear it very, very obviously. It starts pulsing. This just gives us an additional sense of movement, of rhythm. So what I want to do is kind of show you the DNA of this plugin as a whole. And so what I'm going to do is just open up a new instrument. So what I've got here, I just grabbed a piano instrument. That's what it sounds like. And I'm going to show you all the different kind of crazy things that we can do with this. I'm just going to solo it out so we can focus on just this instrument and just the LFO tool. So if we go down to audio units, it's the XFR records or however you say that. And by the way, I don't even have an affiliate link with these guys. So I'm just talking about this plugin because I think it's a really cool plugin. So when you open it up, this is what it looks like. And initially all it's going to do is volume. So all of your controls are kind of over here as far as what's actually happening. And then inside here is where you can really map out what it's actually doing, okay? So the very first thing is right now out of the gate without anything, all it's going to be doing is manipulating the volume, okay? So if you just play it and you're not playing anything, it's not going to do anything. You actually have to play the track. There has to be audio actually going through it. So if I were to go ahead and play this now, now it's actually going to go ahead and start kicking in and start doing its thing. We can do any number of points on here, and all these points are fully manipulatable. So in other words, manipulatable, is that even a word? Okay. So I could even do something like this, where it's going to basically start, kind of go down to 0 or close to 0, and then go back up. So this is what it'll sound. right? So it's going to be a lot more interesting doing it that way. They have a whole list of presets in here, and these presets are wild. So if you're just doing like sidechain, you just want that pulsing kind of rhythm. Obviously, you can get different versions of that here. This is sidechain 1. Here's like sidechain 3. So it's doing something a little bit different here. Obviously doing something quite a bit different there. Then you can go into here and just do these crazy things like this little, so let's just do like a funky filter one here. You can see how they actually map this out. It is wild, and it is affecting the cutoff, the res, the volume, and so it's doing a couple different things. So we could find other different kind of things in here. For example, this like low pass swing thing. Obviously doing some really wild stuff. This is working with the cutoff, the res, the volume. So you can basically go in here and get as detailed as you want. For me personally, I'm mostly using kind of more of the sidechain functions, but you can go in here and you can essentially turn this into like a crazy just rhythm type instrument thing. And so there are lots and lots of controls on here that you can control. You can adjust the rate down here. So this is going to be eighth notes. You could, go all the way up to just fast. You could bring it all the way down to 16 bars if you want. And so you could do any number of things. Like you could have something where you just want this like full blown deal where maybe you go up here and then we bring it back down. And this is like a full bar, which I suppose you could just do this a different way, but let's just hypothetically say this is what we want to do. This is doing this nice kind of slow up and down kind of a thing. But the thing that I love the most about this is that it allows me to just quickly do whatever it is that I want to do and add some sort of a pulsing to it. And with these guitars, for example, what I really love about this is that it's making space for the kick. It's also making everything feel like it's moving. So I use this on this little soft orchestral pad thing here. So there's a little bit of a pulse there, and in context. And again, it's subtle, but it is definitely adding a nice little bit of motion. And I also like the fact that with automating it here, like having it, off for a portion and then turning it on, it just allows for a much more dynamic kind of part as far as your whole track goes. And for me personally, I'm always looking at how can I even if it's subtle, how can I take something and elevate it or take it somewhere different or make it a little bit more interesting so that something new is actually happening instead of making it feel like, oh yeah, this bass part just kind of does its thing the whole way through. Instead, having it where it's like, okay, the bass comes, and then after 4 bars, whoa, the bass is all of a sudden pulsing. That's really cool. Or, having it so that the LFO tool is doing different things with the volume that just gives you this sense of throbbing or this sense of kind of simple motion. Those types of things can actually go a really long way. And for me personally, I've been reaching for this tool on virtually every single track that I've done here recently because it just gives an additional sense of motion and movement that I absolutely love in my tracks. And if you like this track and want to see a full-blown session breakdown of this track, it is one of the many session breakdowns that I have inside my course Producer Accelerator. I go through every single aspect of the production as well as the mix itself too, because this right here that I'm showing you is just the production session. I had an entirely different session that I used for mixing. So I have a link down below for the course, and I'll also have a link down below where you can check out the LFO tool. We'll see you in the next one.